There are two major worldviews, I think, out there today. One is very optimistic about the possibilities for technology and the economy and the market system to solve almost any problem that might come up. I think it's probably the dominant view in the economy today that there are no serious environmental problems. Ultimately, that technology will come along to solve those problems, and through human ingenuity, we can always solve any problem that arises.
The frontiers of the future are not on any map. They are in the minds of men and in the test tubes and laboratories.
The alternative view is a little more skeptical about the ability of technology to solve all problems, and not that it's against technology, but just recognizing that often in the past, technologies that looked very good at the beginning ended up causing more problems than they solved.
We simply need to go back to the ozone hole. Those compounds which were produced were thought to be absolutely harmless. They were released into the atmosphere near the Earth's surface. People didn't worry about them. They were tested beforehand. They weren't toxic. They weren't going to cause pollution problems. And then completely by surprise, we found them way up in the stratosphere. We found that they were affecting a chemical system over the South Pole, high up from the Earth's surface, in ways that we never could have predicted.
If you array those sets of assumptions against the real state of the world, which we don't know, then you come up with 4 possibilities for the future. 4 possibilities for the future. Star Trek. If we pursue the more optimistic policies about technology, and the optimists are right in those assumptions, then we end up in a world that I call Star Trek.
Maybe you ask how we can approach future and what is how to deal with that. And on one hand, you need science to extrapolate current tendencies and to explore new technologies. On the other hand, you need fiction in order to create fantasies.
Let's travel into the future. What will we see?
Due to the internationalization and globalization, due to the frontiers are disappearing, countries don't become that important, but cities, say regions, become more important. They have their own logics. They have to compete with each other. And that can lead already in a couple of years, a couple of decennia now, to maybe even more specialization. If we open up our frontiers completely and we specialize, then the Earth can still grow till about 90 billion people. The Netherlands has 15 million pigs and 15 million Dutch, so it's 1 to 1 exactly. And when opening the borders, one starts to wonder, should we keep that pig industry, yes or not, in the future? We showed that you can concentrate the pig industry of the Netherlands in towers. I mean, they are based on the life cycle of a pig. You make a slaughterhouse in the base, then you need about 40 farms. They can be on 40 floors on top of it, and they can pay off that slaughterhouse, but as well they can pay off a communal kitchen. As such, it includes for the protein needs of the pig more or less a salmon factory on top. They can produce a biogas cupola on top of it to get rid of the shit and to turn it into energy for about 3,000 houses per pig tower. And that makes this kind of fascinating object, 600-meter high, that in a way equalized the discussion on the current skyscrapers. We finally give something which we are proud upon. We put these towers in the port, clearly next to the shipping, so that you can send this pig away over the earth afterwards, so you have it produced. And it becomes a kind of shoreline of pig skyscrapers that welcome you to the Netherlands.
Star Trek. The world where we continue human expansion and domination over nature. Nature's not a limiting factor or an issue really at all in the human equation. It's we've conquered nature essentially.
Never fear, technology will solve our problems by discovering a substitute for wood.
We develop some sort of clean, abundant energy source like fusion or something, and we can continue to expand out into the stars.
Four possibilities for the future. Mad Max. Mad Max. Mad Max. Mad Max.
So if our goals for the future are to create a sustainable and desirable future, I think both from a strategic point of view, we shouldn't put all of our eggs in the basket of the technological optimists, because they might be wrong, and if they are, then we end up at Mad Max, which is where we don't want to be.
Sen on nähtävissä nyt tästä kehityksestä, mikä on tapahtunut eksponentiaalisesti nyt viimeisen 100 vuoden aikana ja kiihtyvästi, että ihmisen luonnonvarat vähenee ja eläin, kasvi, sieni, kunta hirmuista vauhtia supistuu, sekä lajit että yksilömäärät. Ja jatkuuhan se sitten tietysti tällaisena, jolle ei tule pysähdystä. Jatkuu sitten, kunnes kaikki on käytetty ja viimeinenkin eläin ja kasvi ja sieni on kadonnut. Ja nämä luonnon muutokset, eihän ne pysähdy, jollei tämä väestön kasvu ja ennen kaikkea siis elintason nousu, jollei ne pysähdy. Luulen mitään, mutta toivoisin tietysti, että maapallon väestö sitten todella putoaisi jyrkästi. Muutenhan tässä käy niin, että melkein koko muu eliökunta on hävinnyt ja ihminen sitten viimeisenä kyllä tuhoutuu.
Mad Max.
The civilization collapses. There's massive increases in oil prices because we've peaked in terms of our oil production, and there's nothing better to come online.
There's not enough oil, and at the rate we're managing timber and fisheries, there aren't enough trees and there aren't enough fish out there to supply the needs of Japan and the United States and the European Union and China.
I really think you'll see the disintegration of a civilization into much more lower standards of living, much more insular and less cooperative kinds of activities, much more barbaric and primitive kind of lifestyles. And I think it's a very, very grim future.
Four possibilities for the future. ECOTOPIA. ECOTOPIA.
The ECOTOPIA future, where in fact we do concentrate more on quality of life. We try to create a better quality future, but less quantity of consumption.
Fine. No more industry, no more places to work. While we're at it, let's go all the way. Let's wipe out all cities, towns, homes, everything. Now what? Well, now we're starting the hard way, close to old Mother Nature.
I think that, hypothetically, it is possible for people who live in New York or London or any of the other big cities to live a life that is in harmony with nature and not against it. The problem is we haven't figured out how to do that yet. I hope that people will sort of see what I'm doing, maybe laugh at my misfortunes, and maybe start to question what it is that they're doing in their lives. Because what I've managed to do is go from being sort of typical, ordinary, wasteful person to having, I hope, a virtually negative environmental impact, yet still managing to live a relatively full and enjoyable life and hold down a career and everything. I'm working for an auctioneers called Sotheby's, and my job title is bids clerk, which basically means that I help people that want to bid in sales but can't come into the sale themselves to do so. So it's a bit of an administrative support role, but it's quite a lot of fun. I get to see an awful lot of things, go to all the sales. We help the auctioneer out a lot as well. Yeah, it's a good place to work. I would say that I'm a lot happier now. I feel a level of contentment in my life and sort of peace, if you like, that I just can't remember having felt before. If a day's really hectic and busy at work, I go back to the woods. The idea was always to do it for a year, but I'm really not sure what I'm going to do after this, because I can't imagine myself just sort of jumping back straight into the same lifestyle I had before. Just simply the idea of living in a flat in a high-rise block in the middle of London would probably be somewhat daunting and not the most pleasant of ideas of things to be doing with your time. Because, I mean, obviously working and being in a city such as London is hugely hectic. There's sort of everything's happening all at once, all the time, but go back into the countryside and immediately when I step off the bus, I can just feel all those pressures start to wash away, and by the time I'm up into the woods, sitting back, maybe drinking a cup of tea, looking up at the stars, everything just drifts away, and I suppose it's like meditation or something. There have been girls who've wanted to come out, but I've sort of had to point out that it's possibly not quite the romantic idyll that they imagine. I mean, there are all sorts of insects and bumpy ground and getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and things like that to consider. It's a slightly vague concept, I admit. I mean, obviously, I don't imagine other people to go running off and handing in their keys and going and living in the woods. I think what I would be trying to prove is that it is actually possible to reduce the amount of environmental impact that you as an individual have to almost zero.